Well, good evening. It's really good to see you. Do you want to come in? You don't need to take your shoes off or anything. No, you're going to stay on the drive. That's probably best, actually. Well, we're looking at the book of Exodus today, and I want to start with that verse from chapter 3, verse 5, where God says to Moses, Moses, take off your ground because where you're standing is holy ground. There's a bush burning in the corner. Actually, there was an old scraggly one down here, and I was going to set fire to it, but my wife caught me with the matches and has put pay to that. Well, Exodus, of course, is that story of how God leads the people out of slavery in Egypt. It's probably set around 1280, 1230 BCE. And the first 15 or so chapters are the story of the plagues as Moses, emboldened by that call of God, leads the people out of slavery in Egypt. And then there are a couple of chapters where the people of Israel journey in the desert of sin, which is nowhere near as exciting as it sounds. And then the rest of the book of Exodus is that story of Moses helping the people to find a new way of living as they journey into the promised land. What that tells us is that God doesn't just deliver us out of something, he also delivers us into something, out of Egypt and into the promised land. And what the Ten Commandments are, they're not a restriction so much as a guidebook, a kind of handbook of, in this new context, how are we going to live together? And we'll be thinking a little bit more about that tomorrow. But what want to think about today is ground and mountains. Because if you read Exodus chapter 20, you'll see that Moses goes up the mountain in order to meet with God. That's what most cultures expected. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that we started to climb mountains. Before then, mountains were places that were feared. That's where people assumed that the gods lived high up there through the smoke and stuff. Read Exodus 20 carefully, and you'll have to work out a little carefully how many times Moses went up and down the mountain. And carry on reading the book, and you'll see that he gets the tablets of stone and he comes back down with the tablets and gets cross and smashes them, and then has to go all the way back up the mountains to get another set. What's really interesting, though, is at the start of Exodus, God appears in a burning bush. And at the end of Exodus, God is there as a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. Moses has gone up to meet with God in the mountains, but at the beginning and the end of the book, Moses is there away from the mountain. Exodus is tricky reading sometimes as you realize how the people moan because of the circumstances they're in. They're having to eat these things, quail and manna. I don't know what the vegetarian and the gluten-free options were. There's not much meat on one of these things, actually, these friendly quail, but that's what they lived on. And yet what they were being taught was a really important lesson. As the people of God will find when they're in exile a few hundred years later, wherever they are, God is with them. This God, who they'll discover through law, through entering into the land that he's giving them, as they journey out of slavery, this God is with them. Not a God who is up in the mountains, but a God who comes down out of the mountains, appears in burning bushes, appears in the tent of meeting, just like with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, a God who dwells with his people, a God who is not remote that needs placating, but rather a God who draws near to guide. Which kind of begs the question, why did Moses need to go up the mountain in the first place? Why did he struggle carrying all of those tablets down the mountain, poor guy, when God appears out on the plains away from the mountain? And what does it mean for us that God isn't just encountered in places that we think of as holy, whether that's pilgrimage sites or churches, but that actually wherever we are, even on this driveway, we can meet with God. Even as you watch this on your tablet, on your computer screen, wherever you are, even in that place, wherever you find yourself today, God can meet with you. We're only two books into this exploration of the Bible, and we've already discovered how God is a God of blessing who does new things, and God is a God who is able to meet us wherever we are. Well, I wonder what's in store as we turn to Leviticus. Join me tomorrow and we'll find out.